what you invest every single day is part of building your confidence and part of what you're going to cash in on come that first game of the season.
Millions of guys want to do the same thing that you guys do, right? Millions of guys want to go to that next level, okay? What's going to set you apart from all those other guys?
We want them to understand that as long as they bring that motivation with them each and every day when they walk in the door, we're going to get the best out of them and we're going to give them the best opportunity to succeed on the field. So when John came back, when we assessed him, he actually came back a little bit nicked up from school. He had a little bit of issues with his shoulder, and he wasn't able to bench right off the bat. And then he's had a history a little bit of some tightness and some soreness in his back. He's got a really long torso, and he's got really long legs. So some of the hip movements for him, especially when you get an O-lineman smashing on you from the defensive end position, he tends to get a little tweaked up in his back a little bit. So for him, we like to pay a lot of attention on his low back as well as on his glutes. So we want to make sure that his glutes are activated, that his hamstrings are nice and released so that those muscle groups can carry their own load and not have any of that transfer up into the low back and allow that muscle to just work the way it's supposed to and not have to compensate for other things that aren't functioning quite as well. I think technique-wise for him, it's all about staying low. He's got a great explosion coming off the edge, and he is pretty good at dipping underneath the O-lineman. The biggest thing for him is going to be consistency in that area. So being able to get under the O-lineman's arms and pads on a consistent level, consistent basis, and keep his footing at the same time. So, in terms of that low back strength and that pillar strength, that core strength, he's going to be low to the ground. The O-lineman's going to be shoving on him. Okay, we want to make sure that he has the strength and stability to fight against that while at the same time advancing towards the quarterback. Jordan's assessment was kind of on two levels. As an athlete in the weight room, relatively novice in terms of some of the lifts or at least some of the techniques that he was using, and yet still very strong, right? He's a big, strong kid, but had some limitations technique-wise in the weight room. But what we really focused on was on the field. Having not played the game very often, we wanted to try to give him as much help as he could in what he actually needs to be better on the field. So again, big talented kid, lots of ball skills, a lot of bad habits in terms of his route running, the way he carries his hands, his technique in and out of breaks, and even his reaction when the ball is in his hands, simply from lack of experience, and I think to a large degree just getting away from it, frankly, with the guys that he's playing against right now. So couple big things, he carries his arms very, very low, and as a taller guy, all that's going to do is pull his torso down and drive him into the ground, make it harder for him to get out of his break a little bit, and takes a little bit longer for his hands to get back up to the ball and to fight off a defender. His ball skills are second to none. There's really nothing to say about his ball skills. However, once he catches it, he's still hasn't had enough repetitions in terms of tucking that ball away and protecting it. Again, I think he's probably gotten away with it because he hasn't gotten a big hit upon a catch, but those things will come as he moves up level after level. In terms of on the field, really it was just a lot of technique, really trying to just drive home the fact that he needs to carry his hands a little bit higher, not only to make it more efficient in terms of catching the ball, but having those hands in a proper position is going to make him more efficient in and out of his breaks, keep the body in balance, and also be able to work off of man-to-man coverage a little bit better.
So the difficulty a lot of times with rookies is, they just don't have the tools to adjust to that next level. One of the great things with Curtis is, his basics, his football knowledge, his feel for the game are excellent. Started working a little bit on the mental part of on the field stuff, getting him to react, to read what to look for, that he doesn't just rely on strictly his athletic ability, because the jump in athletic ability from the high school age to the university age, it's a big jump. But what we noticed, I think him coming out of his football season a year ago, he was a little bit banged up, and one of the things he had coming out of that season was some imbalances, weaknesses in his back. We did a lot of work on his glutes, a lot of work on his hamstrings. So we had to incorporate quite a few things with some band work, try to isolate some of the smaller muscle groups in his upper back, to really start to fix and neutralize what was happening, and then at that point then start building back out. So he had a little bit better balance of strength from the front of his body to the back of his body. Whether he goes on and he plays halfback, he plays safety, or even a little bit of linebacker, the coverage portion of it is something that's very hard to learn on the fly. He's got great feet, and so now it was a matter of implementing his footwork to actually live situations. So that's one of the things, like I said, we wanted to really make sure, worked hard on that, and he's gonna head off to university as a rookie, fully tooled up. So with Elaine, we put him through a series of exercises and some structural assessments to see just exactly what was going on there. To take Elaine to the next level was we had to kind of break him down, break his body down, and really figure out what's going on in terms of how can we get this guy to apply the power that he has in the weight room and transition that onto the field. And some of the movements that we observe, it gives us the opportunity to watch an athlete break down or maybe even expose what some of the muscle imbalances are. So now what we do is that at that point, then Coach Pat and myself sit down, we go through what the assessment said, and then we start to build from there. We don't want to build on top of the weakness. We want to go in, figure out what the weakness is, bring that back up, and now we're going to have a far more solid foundation and structure. With Elaine, one of the things that we noticed was his hamstrings and adductors were really quite far behind. The difficulty now came, especially playing defensive back, where you have to be a little bit more nimble. You're in always awkward positions. You're a lot more reactionary with your movement patterns. It's very rare, if at all, other than perhaps when you line up, that you're ever really completely balanced with your legs. What we did with the Bulgarian squat, we have his rear foot is elevated, and this puts a really good stretch on his hip flexor, and we just work him through his range of motion. Elaine is now at the stage where he's doing a far more advanced move. We've incorporated a little bit of the explosiveness into it now. So when he's going down, he's backpedaling, or he's about to transition in his break, he's planting, breaking off of one foot. And now this way he's going to be able to take that power that he already has and transition that into the actual game, which is what it really matters at the end of the day.